Hello and welcome to VR Verdict, episode 125. I am PJ. Here talking with Johnny J from Weird Kid Studios.
Hello.
Hey, man. The last minute episode, I guess that was scheduled had to reschedule last minute. As you can tell from the graphics, it's Trigger XR. We'll reschedule them, get them back, but Johnny was awesome enough to say, "Hey, I'll come chat with you." So
Yeah,
I was just sitting here in the clubhouse, just talking to myself. So I appreciate it.
yeah. I didn't want you to be all alone here. You know, friends support friends. Yeah, there we go.
So yeah, we're just chatting about. You haven't been on the Dev Roundtable for a couple of times, and we've sorely missed you. So what have you been up to?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I sorely missed all you guys too. Yeah, so definitely dealing with like some personal life stuff behind the scenes, and then more recently, I think I just really within the last 3-4 weeks have really kind of ramped up development again on Galactic Barfight. And so, yeah, we're starting to work on the second area, and then we're in like pre-production for our third arena, and
Nice.
I'm really excited. Yeah, I think the second arena is it's going to be a little bit more like the first combat arena. I think, the level's definitely different, but we didn't change the gameplay mechanics too much. There's some like new unlockable door. There's like a new unlockable door feature. The area we made is a little more melee focused, and I think the designer was kind of thinking more like old school Doom or Wolfenstein type corridor base, and so I think it's going to be pretty cool. And I'm really excited about the next area because we're changing a lot. It's going to be a very different space than the first two for sure. It's very visually inspired by Doom. I don't know when the new one came out, but whatever the latest Doom is. So it's more of a hellscape bar, which that's
Nice.
where we're figuring out what that looks like. But it's fun to kind of experiment with for sure. Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you guys, had the game in early access and then launched it, and like you said, you're going through personal stuff and things got quiet, and so I've always wondered, like, because it's been a few months with the game and stuff, like, is this kind of like, do you get like a second wind and you like kind of get re-energized and you're like, okay, let's do some more crap and just kind of go at it, or how does that come about?
Yeah, right. I mean, preferably, I think we kind of were in a really good groove once the game released, and I kind of wish, some of the personal stuff hadn't popped up, because I think it would have been really cool to maintain that groove and that momentum. But I also think it definitely forced me to kind of step away and kind of reprioritize things, and in a way appreciate appreciate the project itself, right? I think. I don't know. As a creative, it can be kind of hard to like appreciate the work you do sometimes, right? Yeah. And especially when you're in the weeds, and then the reviews come in, and maybe they're not as positive as you like. And so all that stuff kind of like it can make it feel kind of worthless, right? And then I think. Kind of taking a step away and coming back to it's like, what? We made this game, right? We came together, we decided on this, we worked really hard. Maybe everything doesn't work as smoothly as we'd like. I definitely some of the features I've been rethinking, like, do I need to revisit the AI? Like, certain features, and I'm trying to think about like long term for the game's sake, is it valuable to go revisit some of those core systems? And I think I'm still thinking about that. But yeah, I think I have felt kind of a second win, and I've been really excited to kind of jump back into kind of what we're making and like really like appreciate what it is as like an experience, right? I think just sitting in the bar and looking at the VR Verdict poster that's in the bedroom, right? And just kind of really like relishing, like, I guess I imagined what the game would be for so long, and it's what I imagined it would be, and in some ways way better than I imagined it would be. And just yeah,
That's awesome.
it's forced me to kind of come back down to earth and appreciate it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really neat. And
Mm-hmm.
you know, with all the devs from our normal round table, and like Tab was releasing his vehicular manslaughter game, in bits, and just the way you guys, just the simple thing, like you said, throwing one of our posters in there, and you have a lot of other like VR people in there, and he's got a lot in there, and just being in that space is just it's very like, I don't know, you just feel connected, and it's just really neat to see that. And it's just let alone like from the actual games themselves, like it's just a whole nother level of like, that's just neat.
Right.
And how you guys support each other and all, help each other with all that stuff, like in our private chats and even on the round tables. And I just love that. It's so cool.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely feel like you and Wiki have been like instrumental in kind of, helping us get to the end of the finish line, right? Like really the first people to actually see what the updated version of the game looked like was you and I think to a lesser extent Wookie, but definitely you, right? And I definitely thank you for being our lab rat in some ways. But just thank you for, having us on your show and giving us a platform to talk about it. And, like me and Travis talked about at the time, like, we dreamed of doing this type of stuff in college. And so, actually being able to make a game and talk about it and share our experiences and our design and programming philosophies. And like, it's for me, definitely it's a dream come true. Right. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. That shows, like, and again, we, like I mentioned, the private chat we have, like, some weeks there's no talking. Some weeks you guys get one thing, and then it's like a whole day conversation. And then I love to see, that's half the reason we do the podcast. Like, I just love that passion about, and you guys are making your dreams come true. And that's just so fucking cool to me, So yeah.
I get that.
I get excited when you guys are like, here's a like an alpha preview build. Don't judge us, but check it out. And I'm like, this is awesome.
Right.
I always told Wookie that when he builds little things like that, and it's like, I'm a very positive person. So like, if you're looking for like critique, like I can do that, but I'm way more positive than most people. So it's like, I don't know. It's probably not super helpful, but sometimes when you're down in the dumps, like you said, like, it's just not going well. And it's like, I think I help a little bit with that sometimes. So I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I appreciate it. Absolutely. Right. Yeah, definitely. Like when you're in the weeds, especially, right. And then, it's hard not to draw comparisons doing any kind of creative work. Right. It's hard for even, I'm not John Carmack. I'm never going to be John Carmack. Right. But it's hard not to imagine, like, I don't know. I can't imagine the id team doing this, like with certain aspects of Galactic Bar Fight, or, I'll look at the bar and it's like, wow, that Star Wars Galaxies game maybe did certain parts of like the Galactic Bar better, or, even some of the combat stuff. It's just hard, to not to compare ourselves to like Blade and Sorcery. And, granted, our team's much smaller. We have a lot less experience, like working on an indie project. Like there's plenty of like reasons why like maybe our game functions a little bit different, maybe doesn't measure up to some others, but also it's always nice to hear someone say like, I like that thing that you made, right? I really enjoyed that experience you created. And I'm also probably too positive. Like on Twitter, I love resharing people like, hey, I put 2 blocks together and my character's jumping on them, and to me that's like, oh my God, if someone's creating a game, they just birthed a piece of their baby into the universe. Celebrate it. Look, everybody look.
Yeah.
And
trust me, we have this space here, and Tab helped with that, and we're working and revamping with some other people now to do the next step. And like Wookie's good at this stuff. I have zero clue. Like, I'm lucky to open Unity and like actually get in there and move something. So when you see videos like you said, like I have 2 blocks and they're doing something, like I'm honestly like, that's awesome. Like I can't do that. And that's another part of the reason for the podcast, because it's like, I've tried to do, like, I haven't gone to school or anything like that, like Wookie has and other people, but it's like I've tried it and I can normally figure stuff out. I'm pretty tech savvy, but it's you know, so like even smaller teams and little smaller games and stuff like that are just starting out, like with your guys' game, like I go in there and I can feel like what you've put into it. Like I can feel like this is fun. I can see where what they're doing and where they're going, and I think it's gonna be awesome. And you can just kind of feel like the heart inside, like, and it's just amazing. Where a lot of people are like, "Oh, this doesn't do that. It's crap. Move on." It's like, hey, hold on now.
Yeah, I feel the same, and I think I've always, even before I started making games, like back when I was a teenager, I kind of always felt like even the worst game does something right, all right? Like, whether it's the graphics or it's like one piece of music, or I really like how the menus look, or there's one really dope character in an otherwise terrible game, right? I feel like every game, like something's done well, and sometimes you have to sift through, like, maybe less ideal parts of the game to experience it. But I totally agree. Like, really appreciating the heart and, the passion behind a game, right? Like sometimes games are really awesome ideas and concepts, but, not enough time, not enough money. The creative direction went weird somewhere. Resources were reassigned. Like there's a million reasons games fall apart, right?
Yeah. Like just the fact that you guys, and Tab's probably the best example of this. I think this would be cool. And like the next day, like, hey, look I made it to a certain extent, and it's just like, it blows my fucking mind. Like, how the fuck did you do that so quick? Like, like I said, I can come into our space and like put a poster on the wall, and I'm like, yes. So you guys just, and like I always say this, like to me, you guys have balls, like just putting yourselves out there, putting all the time and effort and even money, and like, and just, you don't know if anyone's gonna see it, play it, like it.
Right.
You guys are just like amazing. I'd have trouble with that, I think. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I think it's a compulsion personally. Like, right? I think I feel like I'm obsessed with game development in a lot of ways, and I'm a big basketball fan too. And like if you ever listened like to a Kobe Bryant interview, because of course I'm LA, right? But Kobe Bryant or Michael Jordan, right? Like they were consumed with basketball, right? Like it wasn't like basketball's fun. It's like basketball is a part of me, right? And I definitely feel like that way with games sometimes. Like I feel like, people ask me like, Thomas, he actually asked me to like give him like a constructive review of his game essentially, right? And I basically wrote this big book report essay type thing, kind of making suggestions on like what I thought he was trying to do, and then some suggestions on maybe different directions he could take it. And so I wrote out this lengthy like 3-page book report for him, and I was like, I hope he doesn't take this the wrong way. But he was really grateful for it, and like I've done that with other games, and but I love video games, right? Like they've been my safe haven for a long time. And so, so yeah, I love just the act of even if I could just make suggestions to maybe make a game better. And he like Thomas looked at it and was like, "This is wrong. This is all bad. I don't know why the advice is supposed to make the game better, not worse." Right? If he would have said that, I'd been like, "Well, that's a bummer," but I had a good time coming up with ideas. And so, yeah.
And obviously, like, with you a little bit and like other devs that we talk to, I do that quite a bit. And I'm like, I can give you a gamer's perspective and what I think could be cool and what you might want to smooth that out to a certain degree. But I'd never be like, this part over here sucks, get rid of that. Like, here's like 2 things you could do to maybe make it cooler. But it took me a long time to like, because I write what I thought, and I'm like, God, I sound like a dick. But I mean, you know how helpful that feedback is, like you just said. And it's just like, it took a long time to be okay sounding like a dick, because everyone's like, oh, that's what I was thinking, but I needed to hear it from someone else. So like,
and And I'd rather hear you tell me, like, you know what, Jonny, this is kind of shitty, right? Like, I'd rather you say that versus, like, the internet can be ruthless. So I think you'll say it a much nicer way than the random on the internet who's like, wow, why did you even try? Right?
You get I hate you 420 leaving a review like your game is trash on fire. Like, why are you doing this for a living? Fuck off. Like,
right.
Yeah, I hate to see that. And there's a lot of devs can put a positive spin. Like they actually had some valid points, but a lot of times there isn't even a point. And I'm like, that would probably make me cry a lot. So you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be tough. Yeah, and I think definitely with the kind of first version with Galactic Bar Fight, I think because I think I mentioned it before, right? It was just kind of the thing I was tinkering on. Then the Oculus Launchpad program came around, and then I submitted it, and App Lab opened up, and I was like, well, I spent all this time, I might as well upload it. And I uploaded it, and the first 200 plays or whatever, which came really fast, I was like, oh, that's really neat, people playing it, and then like thousands of people started playing it, and it's like, oh my God, people are playing my tutorial project. I know I'm a better programmer than this. Oof. And so that started to kind of create a weird relationship where at first it's like, oh, I'm so happy to share this out with the world, to like, oh my God, these people are playing and like all my mistakes feel like they have a microscope on them. And and so it was interesting. But yeah, I still, it took me a while to learn how to appreciate that feedback. But I do think it's valuable. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And going back to you guys' passion, like again in our chats, like especially like when we talk to Robert, like, hey, I just worked 18 hours on this one thing, and I'm like, you did what? But you guys, I mean, you all have days like that. I'm sure he just seems to make that a habit.
Sure, fair.
Which, you can see the results, but it's like, man.
Right. Yeah, fair. I think with Robert, it's a case of youth and like the indie drive. And so definitely hats off. I don't think I could do it anymore. I think when I was younger, I pulled a couple 18-hour days, but I think I'm too old for that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get like, we don't have to like keep talking about like Galactic Bar Fight, even though I that's fine if we do, but like
sure.
We kind of talked about this a while ago, because I don't think you kind of knew what direction you guys are headed. It almost seemed like you might start working on other things, but so as for the team that worked on it, are you guys still the same team and working on it and thinking about side or new projects, or is this kind of focus for a while yet? Or
I think at least until the end of the year, this is kind of our primary focus. I think we were kind of playing with the idea of maybe trying something mobile, right? I think just something a little bit more accessible. And then, we're talking to like, I have a few friends who like work in enterprise spaces. And so enterprise VR, like there's a lot of opportunities. So we're definitely kind of reaching out and tapping and seeing what's out there for that. But yeah, for now, like Galactic Bar Fight is kind of the focus. And I did ask the guys like how they felt, and they both were gung-ho to continue development on it. And nice. I think we wanted 4 levels altogether. So so we have at least one more after the one that's in pre-production. And I think I'm almost curious because I've never kind of been like the lead developer on a game that's getting updated. And so I have like a lot of theories of how this is supposed to work. And I'm trying a lot of things about how I think it's going to work. If I'm honest, I'm kind of nervous about how the save data is going to kind of translate into the new build, because I'm adding like a bunch of new stuff and trying to just make sure we don't break anybody's old saves. Because I feel like to me, that's like a cardinal sin of game. Like I hate when games I play do that. And so I'd hate to do that with anybody who has been spending time playing the game, and where we're averaging about 200 average players a week. So people are playing.
That's with the save thing. Like before the internet was such like what the internet is, like that is one thing that again, without the internet to communicate, like back in the day, it was like magazines and other things. Like,
right.
that is some real rage that happens with
Right.
those if saves get lost. Like back on N64,
Yep.
if that would ever happen, like you would hear about it, even though there was no
Right.
internet. Like, what, I mean, the internet was around, but not what it is. And it was
Right.
just like, to cause that much commotion, that was a big deal.
Right.
So I get your hesitation. Like,
yeah, dude, definitely. Even once the build's finished, gonna be a lot of testing to make sure that that's solid. Yeah, and I think more as a fan than like a developer, I feel like it's kind of disrespectful of people's time, right? Like,
yeah.
That time you put into a game, even if it's for fun, even if you're enjoying yourself and you don't mind starting over, like I think Kingdom Come Deliverance, I actually really enjoyed that game. And I think I played 20 hours, save got lost, corrupted. Okay. I restarted. I think I got 8 hours in, save got corrupted again. And I think that just made me give up entirely on a game I thought was really neat. I love the concept. I love the premise. And so just trying to make sure I don't do that to anybody who's playing a game that I work on. Yeah, that would, Mm-hmm.
A good example of that I mean, the game has come so far is, fuck, now I'm going to forget the name of the goddamn game.
Is it No Man's Sky? I'm just going to
assume. Yes. You're awesome. That, like, when they've been adding, and that game is so freaking amazing in VR and all this, but, the first couple updates, you did lose stuff, and it's like, I have 400 hours, and that's gone.
Right,
but the game is so good. I'm fine with that, but Wookiee is a little different, and that kind of did kill that game.
Yeah.
He's like, after the third time, he's like, I can't do this again. Like, every time, they're still like, they just put an update out like a couple weeks ago, and he's like, that looks so cool. He's like, I just can't. Like, it just still hurts, Like,
oh man, I totally get it.
I think we've told the story on the podcast a long time ago, but back on Dreamcast, Phantasy Star Online.
Wow.
We had like hundreds and hundreds of hours, and my dad ended up deleting his save. Like, it was over 900 hours, and oh my god, like I had to like counsel Wookiee for a while, and like
wow. Oh
yeah,
man,
that was a dark time in the house.
I bet. Oh man, that's wild. Yeah, I guess that's one of the good things of me never having gotten into an MMO, because I think those are especially time sink heavy games, and so I can't imagine losing a 900-hour save. I think I'd probably be on the warpath, honestly.
To be fair, like that was our first like online big gas game, and it was so freaking cool. Sure. So I'm a third of that had to be us just standing on the lobby puck 16, just making stupid comments at other people, and then little pick art and stuff. Like, it was just
I love it.
Still a loss.
Still a loss. Yeah, we didn't have like high-speed internet access for a long time at my house, so Phantasy Star was one of those games I was like, that sounds amazing. A game that's online, you could see other people. Like, it was, I just couldn't fathom it at the time.
It's because 56K was still the norm. And that's what we had. And my previous spouse at the time, she got hooked on it. I got hooked on it, she got hooked on it, and my brother got hooked on it. And we were living in an apartment, and Wookiee was still living at home. But he was, he might as well have been living there. So we had one phone line with the main Dreamcast, and we'd take like our turns. And we had 2 other Dreamcasts on 2 other TVs, and we'd all be sitting in the same room playing PSO. Only one of us would be online, and we'd be leveling up characters solo play. Like, that game,
wow!
Like, oh my! I would love, like, if time travel ever became a thing, like that'd be probably the first thing I do is just go back to those types of moments, like LAN parties, just to get that feeling again, because it's kind of rare now, but yeah, that was just an amazing time.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I think I was I'm on Reddit entirely too much, but people were lamenting, I guess, kind of early. Like I would say, for me, it was the Xbox 360 era of online gaming because that's when I first really started to play online games. And I remember how excited people were when Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter came out, and I loved that game too. And so that and Rainbow Six Vegas, and I feel like those games were. I don't know. They felt different than like online lobbies for games now, right? Like
Yep.
To me, it felt more, I would even say more communal. And like, definitely that was the intense Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 lobby era. So it's not like it was super positive, but it still felt more like everybody kind of appreciated like the online experience and still wanted to just have a good time. Yeah.
That same era, actually, on the original Xbox, when Xbox Live first came out, which I beta tested forever.
Oh, that's cool. Okay.
And we instantly, like, we were just playing online with a group of friends, and we'd suddenly had like friends list of like 30 people, and 30 people that played every night all the time. Like the games could not hold the amount of friends we were trying to play with. And now, like, you can have hundreds of people, and you can't get 5 people to play one night a month. Like, it's just
that's wild. You're right.
Yeah, my biggest like online gaming is great, obviously, but when you've done like good LAN parties like we used to do, like my best friend and I, like he bought a duplex. This is a bit of a story, but he bought a duplex. We lived on the other side of it from him. We finished the basement ourselves with LAN parties in mind because we were still playing, like, I think it's still Halo 2, and we just had LAN parties every weekend, and it was so awesome. We had like 12 rooms in the house with a monitor and a network connection, and had LAN parties galore. We built that right before Live came out, and Live was out for like 3 months, and then LAN parties just fizzled out. I'm like, I was so freaking bummed.
I bet. Oh man, that's a bummer. Yeah. I wish I never got a chance to experience a good LAN party, but I think the closest thing was like in high school, in our computer lab, like we had like a PowerPoint class basically, or a Photoshop class. And so our teacher didn't care halfway. Like we'd do half a lesson plan and then basically spend the entire rest of the class playing Ages of Empires 2 on the computers. Yes. And so that was about as close as I got to having a LAN party. So basically half our class, and then towards the end of the year, basically our whole class was just playing Ages of Empires against each other.
That's awesome. Yeah, sounds like a good time.
yeah, no regrets.
So getting back to VR and stuff.
Yeah,
you mentioned like your team was excited and ready to get back to it. That's got to be like the best feeling. Like obviously, like, if anyone wants out, that's the chance, but you're all good, like, cool, sweet, let's do it. Like, that's got to be like a little scary at first, and then when they're like, yeah, let's do it, and it's got to be like the coolest feeling, like.
yeah, especially like the person who started the crazy idea, right? It's like, well, I'm gonna give you guys an out, and just no hard feelings, right? If you want to bail, I understand, right? Maybe things didn't take off the way we wanted to. But yeah, both my designer and my lead artist were both like, yeah, I know we're still in it, and that's it. It is comforting, right, to like know that like they're legitimately enjoying this experience, right?
Yeah. So, as a team, like when your game launches finally, because I mean, you got feedback and reviews, in early access and stuff. Do you all, like, on your guys' team, do you all like focus on that, or do you try not to look at it, or is it just like one of you, and like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? I think so. Usually, kind of the way it works is like I'll look up the internet and just like look up Galactic Bar Fight and see if anything popped up in the news, or if there's any new videos or anything. And so I'll take a look at that, and if any new videos do pop up that like I didn't know about, I'll bring it up in our next like weekly team meeting, and then I'll either share the links. And so for the first few after the release, like we did kind of sit around and like it was almost like we had a watch party, right? We'd all like mute our mics and then watch independently, and then talk about it. And so that was cool, and I think it was awesome to be able to do that as a team. And I think we were all a little bit nervous, admittedly, and but yeah. So that first time, I definitely we all kind of shared looking at their reviews. I think since then, I think it kind of depends on how. I guess how busy we are, like how likely we are to read the review or watch the reviews. I need to actually go back and watch a few that have come up in the last few weeks or last few months. But yeah, I try to. I think it's important at least one of us get our eyes on them, just so we could get that feedback and kind of see. The weirdest thing about games, I think even it's hard to explain unless you like make a game and release it, but you can tell people how to play your game a million times. You can write all the tutorials you want. You can make all the panels you want showing exactly what they need to do. And you will always have that one person who does something you did not predict, that you didn't know they could do, that just somehow breaks your game and manages to cheese something or something. And so I really enjoy watching people play the game because I think that adds a kind of a different dimension. Like people can tell you like how they enjoyed playing a game, but it's a whole different thing watching them play and kind of go through that experience. And I think that first review we watched, actually, we watched the guy, and one of the things you mentioned early on was her game was a little tough. And so we watched this review, and in that review, the guy, he plays the first time, he loses. He plays the second time, he loses, and he's really pissed off. But he goes, you know what? He's like fuming. He's like, I think I'm done. And he's like, no, I want to go back and try one more time. And he goes back, he tries one more time, and he beats the level. And it's hard to put into words. Like I feel rewarded in the sense I can make a game that agitates someone but entertains them enough to want to come back. And I think that makes me feel good. It also, of course, then asks the question, though, is the game too hard? What's the learning curve? Is it okay to expect someone to try the first level 3 times? And for our game, we don't have a ton of content, so I think we're okay with it. But and our game's more arcadey anyway, right? It's not. It's supposed to be kind of tough to get through, right? Or else you're just going to blow through it and forget it. So yeah, it's. I love watching people play the game. I guess short story long. Yeah.
That's awesome. It is. It's got to be the trickiest balance to, like you said, not agitate someone to where they're like one and done and move on, and then also like too easy and then move on. Like that balance, like that has to be such a hard thing.
Yeah. So I think it's something we're still figuring out. Honestly, I think it's yeah, and it's just so hard because, like, as somebody who sat there and stewed over how the game works for years at this point, right? It's impossible really for me to get into the mindset of like, okay, I'm a person who's never seen this before. How do I play, right? And so that's where those video reviews are really valuable, right? Like really understanding, like, is the stuff we planned out for all this time, is that actually hitting the way we thought it would? Yeah.
Yeah. And that's another like another fine thing with when we were talking about like testing and stuff and checking out people's early builds, and it's like
right.
It's really hard to say like, I know what you're trying to go for, but this is the style. I always try to like, this is how I play. Like I can be competitive and kick some ass, but I'm more like just casual and just trying to kill time and enjoy. So it's hard to like, especially when someone gives you like a demo, like, do you think this is okay to like put out in the world as is or what? And it's just like, you never know how much to say or like how hardcore to go. And it's like, I don't, it's another one of those things with balance. Like that's the trickiest thing with everything, it seems, but
yeah.
because that is hard. Like, and that's why if you're watching, listening, like reviews are so important because
Right.
there are so many people that put something on and within 5 minutes they think they know what the whole thing is and they pass or keep playing. And it's
Right.
just like you'll never get that person back. Like they're maybe 1 minute away from like the coolest experience they've ever seen and they don't know it. And it's like
Right.
that's got to like just the timing of like the first, like when you're thinking of a first person playing your game, their first playthrough, and it's like how
Right.
quickly do you ramp things up and
Right.
how slow do you make the tutorial, because the tutorials in VR, like that's a thing that you
Yeah.
really got to nail. And
Yeah.
I can't imagine you got like, again, that's why I don't make games. It's just thinking of like tutorials and menus, like I'm done.
Yeah.
Like nope.
Yeah, and it's hard because there's like, honestly, I don't think there is a right answer. There's like a best answer, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so even with Galactic Bar Fight, right? We've heard the tutorials too long, right? And I think it might be about, I think I've timed it about 8 minutes, like from start to like getting into the first arena. And then like, so I think like the first like loop of Galactic Bar Fight tutorial and all ideally should take less than 15 minutes. But, for some people, an 8-minute tutorial or introduction, like that's still too long. And then we have to like decide, like, do we trim that further, or is that like, do we kind of give up on the person who can't spend 8 minutes to go through the tutorial, right? And I think for us, we kind of decide, like, I think that our game doesn't have a lot of content. There's not a lot of space, and so I guess if you want our experience, and I think once you go through that tutorial loop, our games very just drop into and kind of get into the action right away. But I guess if you can't get through that kind of tutorial sequence, then fully understand and no judgment. But I think it's hard for us to cater to that person, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's funny because there's a game I just started playing yesterday that I haven't played for like a month, and it has complex like hand motions out of the normal VR realm. And it's like, so I got to like a big boss fight, and I'm like, I don't remember how to do anything.
Right.
And so I looked at the settings, and there's no control menu.
Oh no!
So then I back out to the main menu, and there's nothing in the options. I'm like, this sucks because I couldn't. It took me like 5 tries to beat this thing and remember crap, and I remembered half of it. And I finally got through it, but I was just like, that was rough.
Right.
And just thinking of all that, like
right.
As a dev, like you can't imagine, like, okay, what if I don't play this game for a month? Like, will someone remember how to play it, or should we do this, or like that's just one scenario. It's just crazy.
Yeah, and I think that's the kind of feedback that actually helps a lot for a team, right? Like, hey, I stepped away from the game for a while, came back to the boss, forgot how to do a lot of my like more valuable maneuvers and stuff. And so like, for our team, like that's like, oh, okay, let's go back to the drawing board. Can we do anything to like provide a place where they can like look at like reference material or something, right? Like, is there any place they could relearn how to do stuff beyond the intro, right? And
like, don't take down the VR verdict poster in the bedroom, but put the control poster next to it.
There we go.
You can always go back to the bedroom.
Exactly, right? And so it could be hard to figure out the kind of the best way to handle those situations. But they're valid, right? And like I think that they're like, it's always helpful to like hear that stuff as a dev. But again, like going back to you mentioning like knowing what feedback to give, I'm sure that's hard too, right? Like because
like with that demo situation I was talking about, it's like I don't want to over say anything to make it to where that person's like, I can't put this out, and then because I've seen it happen, and they're like, I'm done with that, and they just like, I'd feel terrible. Not that my words and opinions shouldn't carry that much weight, and I don't think they have. But I've seen it happen in other things, and it's just like, I don't like that.
Like
it's
hard. I totally get it. Yeah, it's hard. Yeah, and I think the creator's dilemma is always like, am I creating something worthwhile, right? And that's a constant question. And some days it feels like nope, and other days it's like, oh, I'm making something brilliant, right? And it's hard to balance that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think creative types, as have that natural kind of roller coaster flow anyway, where you have days where you're like, I'm so fucking good, this is so cool, and the next day you're like, this sucks, why am I doing
Yep.
Yeah, you just need to know who to talk to in those different days, and kind of help you out. But
100%.
Yeah. Like the main thing I always try to tell devs, and just me talking, who cares, but like, I'm a big fan of options. Like, if you can tailor, like, make your game more enjoyable to a wider audience, whether it's left hand, right hand, teleport, smooth turn, like, I would like to see some like that. And I think we've talked about that in the roundtable, more standardization in VR. Like, you shouldn't launch a game without all the movement options and left-handed stuff, and it's slowly over time has kind of come to that. But there's literally still games that come out, and like, I get teleport gets you into VR, and most people will get to like smooth turning. Like, if I go back to teleport move only, and games are still launching with that only, and it's like that gives me a headache. That's the only time I get, because my brain's like just stuttering. Like, so whatever you guys can do and add, I know it's extra work and all that, but like, you also like I said, someone picks that up, they may not come back if there's an option missing, or like, it's tough.
And I think that's all important part of like the support part of game development, which I think sometimes I think just in general people don't talk about as much, right? Like, it's like, I think the focus was always like, let's launch and get it out there, and then it's like, okay, but how do we make sure this continues to exist, that people continue to play this, that this reaches as wide an audience as it can? And I think you're absolutely right. Like, the more options, the better, right?
Yeah, because there's been some awesome games that come out with not the correct options. I wouldn't say I require to play something, but what I what I prefer, and then some days it's like, I can't play it, I hope they update it, and then and I have, like, I watch a lot of VR, like, I keep my eye on things, and there's so much out there. Like, I'll still miss, like, maybe that same game updated 6 months later and added those things. I may not know. Like, that's tough, because I do catch myself, like, this game from months ago had this huge update and they added all this awesome stuff. It's like, oh sweet, I can go play that, but I don't know. You don't always get to catch all that, and that's kind of sad.
Yeah. I think the discoverability and kind of like I guess news cycle for Oculus, I think that could use some love, some additional attention, right? But because it could be hard to like communicate that an update happened or changes are happening, or even doing like a community-wide thank you. It could just be a little bit hard to kind of make sure that gets the reach that you want it to.
Yeah, exactly. And so you've kind of been correct me if I'm wrong, I'm just kind of talking. But you've kind of been a dev that's kind of been, I wouldn't say like working with Oculus, but you did the startup and all that.
Sure.
Again, from my perspective as mainly a gamer, like on Twitter at least, like they'll push like the big games just like on their store, and it's like, and I've like messaged them and said many things like, what about these little gems that you're not talking about? Like, get some eyes on. Like, everybody knows that this game exists. Everyone knows it. Come on, like,
Beat Saber.
Let's get some love down here. And he's like, how do you guys deal with that? Or like, are there like, when you're dealing with Oculus, is there like, do you have channels to say, hey, we have an update, could you kind of help us spread the word, or anything like that?
It's hard, right? I think like the bigger kind of conversation here is like discoverability in games, which is a huge issue, not just for Oculus, right, but on all platforms. Steam also, right, and the place, like all the stores essentially, and so that's a huge issue. And I have not found Oculus's communication be great with devs. I think Justin and Dima might have some of the better relationships with Oculus. I know, but they also have games that have more are more hyped and more exciting and are getting a lot more visibility in general. And so. So yeah, I can't say that I've noticed Oculus be great at kind of working with indie developers in that way. I think Launchpad is a great initiative. I think the Oculus Start program's great. But yeah, I think it's actually probably of all the kind of console manufacturers and stuff I've built stuff for, I think Oculus probably is one of the most kind of standoffish, like almost like I wouldn't know how to reach out to someone at Oculus to say, hey, we released an update. And even if I looked at certain channels, like a lot of times the responses other indies will say is like, yeah, Oculus said, we'll reach out to you, right? Like we'll contact you if we're interested type situation.
Don't call us,
like,
we'll call you.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like dating
right?
in high school all over again. Like, come on.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Oh man.
And and again, this is just from a gamer perspective. From what I see, like and I love Oculus and the store, and like and they do a lot of things I don't like, and obviously,
For
but
sure.
for being a newer company towards like gaming with VR, they're doing like the way they treat and work with devs, and especially indie devs. Like I think, and you don't have to say anything. I don't want you getting in trouble with anybody, but I think they do like the worst job out of all the game companies and platforms I've seen. And it's like you're trying to get VR into the mainstream and get in the hands of people. Like,
right.
It doesn't make sense. Like, why wouldn't you help these smaller guys out and get more eyes on things? And I totally agree. I don't think you'll give me any more trouble than I do myself. So I think if they look at my Twitter, I think I'll be more in trouble than anything I say today. But I'd agree, and I think. And it's so hard because I think that, I do think like Launchpad, for what it's worth, I don't think Galactic Barfight would exist the way it does without Launchpad and like without me having like a desire to finish and, being able to launch my first indie game on Oculus as a VR enthusiast, especially. Like that was all really awesome. And I appreciate the opportunities they gave me for that. But I also do. I totally agree. I think that sometimes their support of indies can be a little underwhelming. And I think, I have a larger theory that I personally think that Oculus made a few weird missteps in trying to be both a hardware organization and a software organization. I think they should have probably picked one, right? Like, if they were going to make the platform, then I think they needed to put money into making sure the people on the platform could create the best experiences. And it feels like they did both. And I don't know if doing both was smart, because that's like Nintendo trying to build and Nintendo could do it, but Nintendo also had a gaming history 100 years before electronic games existed, right? They've been doing games for a long time. And so, I think Oculus kind of entering like both being, we're going to make consoles and we're going to make games. And like that, I think that's asking a lot of we've never done either of those things. It's a good idea.
Right. Just saying. I think it's a bit much to chew off at once. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be, I don't know, because maybe like I'm assuming like your viewpoint, like with the start program and all that, like oh, this is gonna be great, and I'm gonna do this, and then it seems like it just drops off, and you're like, what the hell happened?
Yeah, and for what it's worth, like in the Launchpad program especially, they did offer, maybe not as much support as like me and other people in the program would have wanted, but they did like do like little boot camp meetings where they like teach you about different, creating solid narrative beats in VR, right? Or kind of talking through like VR, like intimacy in VR, right? And how to like, really connect with the sense of presence and like the value of eye contact between characters and you, or how you can like shift somebody's perspective to make them feel like they're in a different space even if they're in their bedroom, right? And so they gave us a lot of like little sessions like that, and those were helpful. I think I think those were helpful. I guess I kind of wish there was more of it. And I will say on Launchpad, I think one frustration, I actually was a part of two projects. Galactic Bar Fight was one, and then I won a grant with another project called Supersonic Rhyme Chamber, which was going to be like a VR hip hop project. And I think one issue that team we had as that team was we didn't know what Oculus wanted, and we kept on reaching out to Oculus to like ask like, what do you want? And we just felt like it was kind of like, I don't know, like just fill it out and like we'll see where you land. And it's like, well, but also you're creating a platform, so I'm sure you have ideal like games, right? Like I'm sure there was a moment where Beat Saber was blowing up. They're like, we need more rhythm games, right? I'm sure that conversation had to happen, but if you don't let the developers know, then like how does anybody know what to build outside of just, I guess we're gonna just throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks, right?
Yeah, like you said, we need more rhythm games, and then suddenly it'd be nice someone said, don't make a rhythm game for 6 months or a year because we've got 30 on the
Exactly, right?
Go do something else.
Right, and then they dried up. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think like I've seen more than once, and this kind of breaks my heart. Like I've seen devs say like, my game came out today in App Lab, and my best friend who plays VR all the time couldn't find it in the freaking store.
Right.
Like,
yep.
It's like, oh my, why is that like that? Like, you gotta hit like the button like 6 times to get to the page, and like we all, I mean, we all know that because we do it all the time. But like, anyone new, like, there's no way in hell they're gonna find those games on those. Like,
Yeah, even my aunt, who I asked me if she could play it, and she's been asking me for months, like, can I play your game? And she's like on a special invite list, like she has a free copy available whenever she can redeem it. I've told her the name several times. I've sent her links, and it's just like she just can't find it, like you said, and that is frustrating. I think I wish, I guess I wish that. Like, I get why they separate App Lab titles from the main store, but I almost wish that they would have like an App Lab store that people could go in and explore, and like everything's kind of there versus like just kind of hiding this away in the main store. It's I don't know. Yeah.
I haven't I'm going to feel bad saying this. I'm sorry to anyone listening, but I haven't tried, since SideQuest got their actual stuff on the headset and you don't have to like, side load and stuff. I haven't tried that yet.
Me either.
But I wonder if things have picked up for them, because like SideQuest is amazing. It's always been amazing. The work they do and the help they supply you guys is top notch, and it's better than Oculus. But then when App Lab came out and tried to somewhat work with them and get things going, but basically steal what they're doing and do it worse.
Right.
Because everything's so buried. Like you search Galactic Bar Fight and all the things from their store pop up that have those words in it. And down at the end, there's there is one app that might interest you if you click this button.
Right.
And you click that button, you're like, oh, just an FYI, this isn't a main store game, and we can't vouch for it. And it's like, that's got to turn like half the people off that go, that's disgusting. Like, come on.
Sure. Yeah, totally get it. I totally get it. And I know a lot of that's a holdover from early VR, right? Because like, I think the VR as an industry learned pretty early, like, when we make people sick, they don't want to touch a headset for the next 2 years. So maybe we don't make people sick, right? And so it's a holdover from that. But I think, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just gonna, like you said, if there's an App Lab storefront, I mean, put the warning on there once so that people, that's all you need. You don't need 10 things.
Yeah, right. And even if you'd let developers tag it like, hey, there's might be potential frame rate drops, right? Like I think there's a point where you could trust the player to go, I don't mind, like I don't mind experimenting with this. And if the frame rate does make me sick, then bummer. I kind of knew it's coming. But some people, I think you mentioned you have an iron stomach, and so maybe it wouldn't affect you as much, right? And so yeah, right. Yeah, so I think like there's an area for user trust, right? And like trusting the developers to like go, I know which game problems my game does have, and this is one of them. Yeah.
And even as a gamer, like I see that it's insulting because I should be able to make that decision for myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like I want to try that out, see what they're doing, maybe give them some feedback and help that way, and get them on the main store at some point.
Right. Mm-hmm. Even
I just realized that. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. I was just gonna say I think that what acceptable for the main store is continually more confusing because Gorilla Tag isn't on the main store, right? And I think of every metric for success you could imagine, they've nailed. And so I don't think any of us really know what a decent main store candidate is. I think Cubism is the only game I've actually seen go from App Lab to the main store, and I get that one, but that's one, right?
Yeah. I think like Warplanes was another. There's a couple, but not like it's not double digits.
Right. Yeah, fair, very fair.
That's that's just gross. I was just gonna say, like, we can't do it, but I just realized, like, I need your crystal ball from Galactic Bar Fight to be right over this table. In our next iteration that we're working on, that could be a possibility, but
okay, for sure. I'd happily.
It's been a while since I smacked that around, so I got to get in there and do
that. Yeah, one of my favorite things. I think I put it in there, and I was like, it'd be really cool though. It'd be really cool. And I want to punch it. Yeah.
And I think we might have talked about this on a round table, but like, I was testing it out, and I'm like, it'd be really cool if I could just punch that thing. And I'm like, oh shit, I can, and I just beat the crap out of it. Like that was like honestly one of my favorite VR memories. Like that just blew my mind.
That's awesome.
I don't know if that's Johnny's, but someone's thinking like I think, and I like that.
Definitely. Yeah, I think that's the fun of VR, right? I think it's like adding that extra dimensionality that you don't get from traditional games, right? And I think that's something I definitely would hopefully in the next few updates of Galactic Bar Fight, we have more stuff you could just fiddle with, right? And throw stuff across the room. And we talked about potentially making like bottles you could just grab, and their whole purpose is to be hurled. Because to me, Galactic Bar Fight's absolutely a destruction playground, and that's kind of what my original intention is. So the more stuff you can ruin and break, I think to me that fulfills any design vision I had for it. Yeah.
Be really cool. You could do the old school like N64 face scan and put pictures of people you're not necessarily a fan of on like enemies. Just take some of those melee weapons and just go.
I like how you think, PJ. I like how you think.
I could put Wookiee's face on every enemy and just kill them all.
Oh, if that's not brotherly love, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's a carryover childhood dream, from way back.
Of course. I get it. I totally get it.
From the Street Fighter days, like we've talked about, like we used to punch each other and knock each other off the chair during those, and you can't do that yet in VR. So that one step closer.
One step closer, right?
That's the Behaptics thing I want. Like I need to reach over when Wookiee's sitting here and push him off his chair, and in real life, get that feedback and have it happen.
Right. Oh, I love that. Oh man, yeah, you got it. Have you had the Behaptics folks on your podcast yet, or?
No, we've chatted a few times, and it'll happen. We're trying to make it happen. Yeah,
for sure.
And that's one thing that I've had haptic stuff in the past with even way back to 64 and before that, like, you know, there's been iterations, and that's one thing that's always like, that's never stuck around long enough to make the investment worthwhile. But I'm obviously V Haptics is doing like perfect, so I gotta get a setup for that, because I've been slacking on that one.
I get it, yeah, and I think I'm really excited for whatever the PS5 VR is, because I think what they're doing with the I don't know if they're 6-axis controllers anymore, but whatever the new PS5 controller is, the haptics on that are pretty insane. So if like the VR version has even kind of similar haptics, I think it'll be a whole new paradigm for like a VR haptics, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Like I don't know if you were on the podcast, we talked about that. Like, I've never owned a PlayStation in my life. I've had every other console, every other just placed it. Like, they have a bunch of good games. It's just like overall, like, I'll just take everything else. So the moment PSVR 2 was announced, I went out and got a PS5. I'm like, I'm getting ready.
Wow.
And I got, you know, a PSVR 1 set up, and I've been going through those games I didn't have access to, and I've been loving them. Like, they're just great. I'm so pumped for especially with the hike price on the Quest 2. I'm really pumped to see someone else step up, because like, you know, I love hardware, I love all the stuff, but I'm mainly like, I would take 10 games over a new headset. You know what I'm much more software oriented, and like, I just want more stuff to experience and play. Like, another headset could come out 5 years later, I'd be fine. I know that's helping getting it in the hands of mainstream and fixing issues with motion sickness, but that's just me. And
I get it. I totally agree. So, I think. Have you played London Heist? Because that's probably one of my favorite PSVR experiences.
No, I haven't yet.
You should play it. I think it came on like a demo disc for a bunch of like small experiences. I think there's like an Astrobot rescue mission on there too. But London Heist, I think you should definitely try that. I think you'd really like that. I love it personally. But
I'll check it out. I'm glad you told me that, because you know, I've heard of, when I didn't have access to that system. You know, I heard Astrobot was so good, and it is Truth. Is it Blood and Truth, or
Blood and Truth? Yeah, it's from London Heist is from the same people. Yeah.
Oh, that makes I'm gonna definitely check it, because I'm halfway through that and I'm loving it. Here comes my bad with names problem. The sci-fi with shooter with that you can use with the gun, like that.
I know the name of it. Right, with the spiders or whatever.
Yeah, that game
I haven't played it, but is it great?
It's freaking epic. Like,
that's awesome.
And that's one thing that blows my mind too. Like, Oculus, like that gun controller, like, is so awesome.
Right.
Oculus doesn't have anything. Like, what the fuck?
It's weird. I think I think that I feel like that there's a lot of missed opportunities. Like, if they would have just focused on hardware and like put money into like developers maxing out the software, I think that they'd like, I mean, you know, they already have lock on the market, right? So like, you know, it's not like anybody's taking their place anytime soon, but I just feel like that if they focus more on the hardware and making sure like it's the best possible VR experience, and you had all those peripherals, right? Like, I'm on the VR subreddits on a lot, and like, people have like their Boneworks made up like gun like examples, and I just don't know why you wouldn't capitalize on that, because I can see so many people being crazy about that. And I think I think it was Pavlov. I think that was one of the games, like putting money into making a port of that, and then like a gun peripheral. I think I don't see how that wouldn't have been tremendously popular. I don't know.
I mean, you remember when the Wii first came out, and that blew everyone's minds. And then there was like freaking attachments from golf clubs to tennis rackets to steering wheels. And it was fun to have that stuff, but it didn't help gameplay. But VR, it would freaking help, and it would make it way more immersive. And it's like, why aren't you doing that? Like,
right? I totally agree. I'm not even like the best at shooting games, but I would love to try like a Sniper Elite or something with like a simple gun peripheral. I think that would be a blast. And I'm sure I'd be awful because my aim is actually awful in real life, but it would be so fun to play with. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it would help. Like, there are options out there. Don't get me wrong. Like, awesome. Right. People are making awesome stuff, but it gets expensive. And it's just like, it's hard to like, do I want to pay $500 for a gun stock I may or may not like, or may not be what I'm looking for? And you know, that's too big of a leap. Where if Oculus was putting that stuff out and it was like $50, like, okay, no problem. Like,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I totally agree. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know when we started. So if you got it, like, I really appreciate you hopping in last minute and just saying, let's talk about whatever. And I can keep talking if you, I don't care either way, but don't let me keep you, because you're so awesome just to hop in. And like I said, I don't know when we started. So
yeah, I think I still got some time. I did have another thing I was doing at the time, but the schedule, they misscheduled. So I think, but no, I'm down to talk some more. And but also, I don't want you to feel pressed either. Yeah.
Oh, no. What I don't want to see is a tweet from you like saying, "Oh, guys, we're working on this great thing, this new map for Galactic Bar Fight. It would have come out this week, but some asshole's making me talk for like an hour and a half on this podcast."
Literally. I'm so ready to throw you under the bus. You don't even know. Yeah. Oh, man. Absolutely. I was going to put you in the next community update I release on the store. Like, man, PJ from VR Verdict. Direct.
That
guy. Yeah, that guy.
Let me tell
Direct reason for the delay. Yeah, let me tell you.
Aim all your hate at him. Like,
right, absolutely.
I would actually I would offer that as a service for you guys. Like, however I can help take the blame me. I'll take all the heat.
Right. Oh, I love it. Yeah. We'll have to set up a fork and pitchfork store, and just so people can adequately approach you correctly.
We'll add a room over here where you can come in and literally in VR grab a pitchfork and sit here and stab me with it.
There we go. I love it.
Yeah.
Interactivity. Yeah.
And that's actually like, when we have guests on, like, we try to decorate and we offer like, hey, give us your in-game assets, we'll put them in here. Right now they're not grabbable or anything, but the thing we're working on, that's going to be like the first thing, plus like names and stuff.
That's cool.
Like, if I want to talk about Galactic Bar Fight, you could bring weapons with, and we could literally like pull them out and do whatever you got to do with them. And so that would be cool.
That would have been amazing when we had that weapon wall or that gun wall. That would have been incredible. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Anyone that missed that when we were in Spatial Ape and Jonny first guest on the podcast, I don't know how many weapons were on that wall, but it was something to behold.
Yeah, definitely a happy accident, but I wouldn't change it. No. Oh man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's funny. The good old days.
The good old days, right? Mm-hmm. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I probably know the answer to this, and I ask a lot of devs, but being that you're developing stuff in VR, you're still kind of like, you got into it because you love VR and you're an enthusiast, but do you still get to play games? And if you do, like, what have you been enjoying lately? Or have you not had the chance? Or you're just like most devs, like, I have the headset on 12 hours a day, I can't play anymore.
Yeah, it's a little bit tough because my day job is a VR gig too, right? And it's like virtual production stuff, and so I have on the headset for that. I think really the last game I really kind of got into was Demio. Like, my cousin asked me to play with her and a friend, and awesome. I had a good time, and then we lost, and I was like, wait, no, I had to understand more about this game, and so I just ran like a solo campaign room or whatever. And like I was really getting into it. Like I was sweating my ass off and like hunched over the table and like strategically planning my units movements, and then my headset died and it's been a while. Like to me, that's like the ultimate, like I think no matter what I say about VR game, if I can play it to the point where my headset dies, that's how I know I had like a legitimately good time. When it consumed me that much, right? And so
I so wish I could have been in the basement just watching that. That sounds so cool.
I had a good time. That's and then the headset shut off and I was lost. And I'm like, oh, batteries, right? Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. But yeah, no, Demio is awesome. I love. Like I have like a weird fixation with scale and like numbers as well. But but like anytime like I can experience something like much larger than me, like on the PSVR, I guess another thing I might recommend is on Star Wars Battlefront had like a like an X-wing mission. Yeah. And so and I think the way it starts out is like you start on the ground and basically AT-ATs walking by you, and like you know, childhood like obsession. I loved the AT-ATs as a kid, so just staring up at it was amazing. And so that, like, you know, scale, I think the first VR experience I fell in love with was the Blue Whale experience on the HTC Vive forever ago. And like basically a whale just swims past you. It's pretty simple, but like it's just like you see this like vague outline of something coming towards you, and then it decreasingly becomes less of an outline and more of a whale. And then you just slowly realize, oh, I am very small compared to this whale. And so just anything that kind of lets me, like, you know, play with scale, kind of like Demio, and being able to like scale down to your figures or scale up and like do a more tabletop D&D type view. I'm in love with that. I even like that Horizon lets you kind of play with scale. I think that's one of the things they do really well. Don't have a lot of good things to say about Horizon, but I think that's one thing I do think that they do really well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's by far my favorite thing in VR is scale and like perspective and like you said with that whale, like there's no way in hell you can imagine how big a fucking whale is. But the power of VR and the magic of it, like that shows you, and it's just like, holy fuck.
Right? Yeah. Absolutely.
And like Demio, like I am so fortunate, like that's one of my all-time favorite games.
Okay.
And we've talked to Resolution. We've had many of those people on the podcast, and we've done lots of background stuff and videos and secret play sessions. And I'm so grateful that they're so awesome about things like that, because like I go, like you said, you played a solo campaign. Like I've done that. Just running through the whole thing with all 4 characters, just having a blast by myself. But I play 100% zoomed in because it's so freaking cool. And then the one time, you know, per board, like I'll zoom out and just appreciate that perspective too. And it's just like, oh my, like you cannot beat that. It's so fucking cool.
Totally agree. I totally agree. Absolutely.
Like that's, we were talking about kind of like standardization, and a lot of this that I'm about to say has kind of gone away because Resolution's so great. Like Demio comes out on the Quest, comes out on the Oculus Store for PC VR. PC VR is kind of hanging on by a thread, which makes me sad because I'm very much more into that than mobile. As much as the Quest is great and all that, but PC VR is where my heart is. So it hurts like when, you know, Quest only, like that's fine, but I would much rather have the options like cross buy, cross play are such, in my mind, like tremendous things. And it's just, you know, a company that always, like for every game they make, it's the same, like it's almost always co-op or some form of that. You know, it's on everything, it's cross play on everything, cross buy as much as possible. Like they support everything so well, and you know, those are the standards that I like to see. And I think that's just amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wish they made it cross buy and you know, cross progression saving. I wish they made that a little bit easier on Oculus platforms. Again, like weird choices, because I think there's a lot of ways where Meta has kind of really taken the like, this is our platform and we're going to make the most of having this controlled system, and you can't do anything on our headset without going through us. I know for me, at one of my last jobs, like we talked about having like a analytics or Google Analytics for our game, our app, and that just wasn't allowed because I imagine they were going to eventually release like a Facebook or a Meta Analytics tool, and I haven't seen much outside of like what the dashboard gives you. And so yeah, but like, yeah, I just think that that's a weird thing they didn't continue, right? Like I think, you buy something on PC headsets, it translates to mobile to the Quest, right? Or if you play a game a lot on your Quest and then you want to go back home to your PC headset, then we have like a cross progression. I just don't understand some of those decisions, and sometimes it makes me wonder if like the people who are behind Meta are like gamers, right? Don't know if that's fair. I know they have quite a few like game heavyweights that are part of the company, but there just feels like there's a weird user disconnect, like, right? Like any gamer would know that this is something people might want, even if it's not something that could be addressed, right? But
because like I said, like PC VR is where my heart is, but the moment the Quest came out and the moment I took my Quest outside in my yard and had that freedom, like it was it was almost identical to the first time I experienced VR in the first place. Then I was just up north in a cabin for 7 days off the grid. I took my Quest and I fell in love all over again with my Quest because all these great games just came out, like Moss 2 and God damn it, Shock Troops, and a couple other games. Like, and I played outside, next to a lake, and I loved it. But then I came home and I'm like, okay, now I want to play that same game on my PC where I like to play. It's like, gosh, I'd have to play all over again. Like, I'm gonna do it, but it's like, it's just another hurdle that they kind of tripped over, I think.
I totally get it. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I'm excited to play Moss 2 as well. That's on my wish list. That and virtual reality too. I'm a little bit lacking. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like, with Moss 2, for example, like it's only on Quest. It came out on PS VR first. This came out on Quest. I'm pretty sure they're bringing it to Steam at some point, but I played it on Quest. It was a blast. It was great. It was gorgeous. But again, like PC VR is where my heart is, so I know like as gorgeous as that is, it'd be 10 times as gorgeous over here. And it seems like Oculus stopped offering even the devs maybe at this point, like the opportunity. Like, maybe I'm wrong, but like if you want to put it on the PC VR store, that's fine. But a lot of the last games that have come out haven't done that. They used to do it. Like Moss 1 was on both, and I'm just like, the whole time I'm playing it, I was just drooling and loving it. But there's always like every pause, I'm like, I want to play this on PC. I know it's going to look even better. Like, it just kind of hurt when I kept thinking about it. But it's like, give us the options. Come on, I know.
I get it. Yeah, I'm super curious what the PS5 VR's experience, what that's going to do to that relationship. Because well, first, I guess I didn't think 4 years ago, right? Like, I think that's when the rumors of the Quest were around, and like, I didn't think that was possible to do what they were saying the Quest was going to be, and then they did, and I was blown away. And so I'm super impressed with what the Quest 2 is, and what the Quest was, and what the Quest 2 is. But I don't know. I had this feeling that like the Horizon VR experience on PSVR, I think that's going to blow us all away, and I guess I'm curious what Oculus's or what Meta's response is going to be to that, because I can't not say what you will about Sony. I think they always put a great deal of love into their first party stuff, and so I would expect that experience to be the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, because It was Lone Echo 2. They're like, that's the law.
Mhm.
That's our
Yeah.
last title
Right.
that is PC VR only.
Right.
And then it's like, okay, then it faded. Now, like, there is no PC VR titles. Like,
Right.
and
Right.
oh, I was gonna go somewhere somewhere really good too. But but yeah, Zero Horizon Dawn, that
Mhm.
looks phenomenal on
Yeah.
PSVR 2.
Mhm.
Like I just like when I bought a PS5, that's the first game I played because I never had a chance to play it,
Oh,
obviously.
yeah. Mhm.
And I'm like, this is so fucking cool. And then they
Right.
released that trailer. I'm like, oh my god, I did the right thing.
Yup. Can't wait. Yeah.
But it's like,
that's probably. Oh, go ahead.
oh,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say on Oculus, like my overall, it's so different from Demio. I can feel comfortable saying this.
Right.
Probably my still overall favorite VR game is God damn it! I wish I didn't have this problem. Like, shit. Their big 40-hour game they put out is gonna come to me.
Oh, is it the Viking one or whatever? Or no?
Yeah.
Asgard's
Wrath.
No, Asgard's Wrath. There we go. Okay.
Like that. Like,
Mhm.
there's been no word of a sequel, but it's one of those games where, like, if you don't make a sequel, you might as well just quit because that's fucking dumb. Like,
yeah, fair.
So I'm hoping like that's their answer to Zero Horizon Dawn. But
yeah.
But then it's like, what's that gonna look like on the Quest 2?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I played Asgard's Wrath at, I think, Oculus Connect when it first came out, and yeah, it was of course tethered. I think they were showing it off with Oculus Link at the time, but still it's connected to the PC, and I think I was just blown away with what it was. Right, like that. I think that was very much the VR action game that needed to exist. I'm super confused by why it wasn't like. I just feel like everybody, like, if there was a game I would have imagined Oculus would have really pushed hard, that was probably the one, right? Like, I'm happy everybody loves Beat Saber, but like, and for the hardcore gamers, they're all like, oh, I want a real game, and I think Asgard's Wrath was that, and it just wasn't pushed that way. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like, oh man, I've played it like twice, like all the way through it. I'm ready to go again. Like,
I bet.
Such a miss.
Absolutely.
So another question I'd have for you,
sure,
your opinion. So, PC VR comes out 2016ish, maybe before, right around there.
Right.
And you had to have like a $3,000 to $5,000 computer. You had to spend,
a monster.
$800 on a headset. They're like, this is what you need for VR, and then it,
right.
And then a couple years later, like, here's a Quest that's running on the cell phone processor.
Crazy.
And even the Quest 1, like, there are a couple games like Red Matter and a couple other ones where, like, you literally can't tell the difference between the Quest version and the PC version.
Right.
It's like, how the fuck did you guys do that? And
right.
B, if this is what's happening now, why was it such a $300 headset to like $8,000 needed to play VR? Like, why weren't the minimum specs on PC just lowered so everyone could get in on it? Like, what do you think of that? Like, that just blows my mind.
Yeah, right. And I think when the first time I tried, right, the first VR I tried probably was like, for the modern iteration, it's probably like a Google Cardboard, which was neat or whatever. But yeah, I think like everybody, it's like, oh, I tried VR. I had a Google Cardboard. And it's like, once you try a Vive or something, it's like, no, I want you to try real VR, right?
Yeah.
And so yeah, I was definitely bummed when I like tried the Well Blue experience, and I asked my friend like how much it costs for the setup, and he was like $3,000, and I was like a mid-level junior or mid-level engineer, wasn't making a whole lot of money. I was doing okay, and I was like, but I cannot spare $3,000 on a gaming PC just for a VR setup, and so I was super bummed out by that, and actually that's why I got a PSVR myself, because I was kind of the closest I was going to get to a desktop setup. And so yeah, I think really, I think it's so hard to like I feel like talk about VR. I don't know if it's objectively or subjectively, but to talk about VR, because I think even sometimes people complain about how VR hasn't blown up in the way that maybe we thought it would, like the way maybe phones did, or almost as like this new technology revolution. But then I think we also missed that, like, Palmer Luckey came out on Kickstarter and was like, hey, we're making this thing. You guys want it? And that blew up overnight. And that's what this whole iteration of VR is based off of, right? Like it wasn't like a big, like, push from big technological forces to create it, right? It was like, hey, let's make this thing. And, just kind of the community working to put it together, and, people buying their monster machines, and, all the driver issues that came with trying to connect your monster machine to the headset and make sure the updates don't completely ruin the setup this week the way it did last week. And so, like, a lot of that, like, I think it's just a lot of things were moving really quickly, and it was really the beginning of kind of this phase of VR. And so I think sometimes that gets lost. And then, love him or hate him, Facebook kind of taking over Oculus, and then, hiring Carmack and that team to kind of engineer the Quest 1, which, again, at the time I thought it was impossible. I thought, because like you said, right, 2 years prior, it's like my friends would have to, like, plan out a week in advance to bring their crazy monster machine in, and then bring in their suitcase with their Vive headset, and then set up the lighthouses, and then, like, all this elaborate setup. And then you mean to tell me all I had to do is take this headset and these controllers out, and, like, that's VR? Like, I could just draw a boundary and I'm in a VR space. And so, and, like, that's really, like, that's 6 years, like 6 years from that to this. And that's kind of crazy, right? Like, that's not much time at all. And so definitely I totally get what you're saying. Like, it would have been nice if VR would have been more accessible at the beginning. But I also think, like, considering how quickly we went from having to have a $3,000 tower in order to play these games to, I playing super hot on the Quest was the first thing I wanted to do. And I was so blown away when I did it, and being able to make a full rotation, that was so amazing to me. I think I wish it was more accessible early on, but I'm also amazed how quickly things have moved.
Yeah, that's true, because it is easy to forget those things, especially the USB nonsense.
Right. Yep, absolutely. Right. And making sure your cables were, like, lightning free or whatever, the USB 3.0 or whatever. All sorts of stuff. Yep.
Even, like, the simple thing with not Vive so much, but Oculus Rift, just creating the Guardian. Like you said on Quest, you just done. On there, it's like, if you have to reset that up, like, that's a good half hour of your time.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's just, and again, like, my very first VR experience was Elven Assassin in, like, a arcade setup. Fuck it, like, literally the 30 seconds I had that thing on, I'm like, I am into this, I'm owning this, I'm doing something. Like, things are happening. Like, when you're a young boy and you start feeling certain feelings about things, and you're like, oh, I never thought I'd feel that again. Like, here
it is. Oh, I love it.
Like, I need a private booth because I don't have a book to cover what happened in my shorts, like.
Right.
Because that's what VR did when I put the headset on. I'm like, oh.
Very physical response. Very.
Another hard thing for me is, I can't do air quotes with my pills, but enthusiasts, which I think I'm an enthusiast, but there's a whole nother level that, like.
Right.
Again, what kills me with, like, especially indie games, like, oh, that doesn't look like Half-Life Alyx 2 or this or that, and it's like, I can't play anything else that's come before that, and I can't play anything because nothing else has come out. Like, it's like, shut the fuck up. Like, come on. Because, Elven Assassin is like N64 graphics, but in VR, you put the headset on, like, you forget that shit. Like, just the movement and reaction, like, it makes it real. Your brain does the rest. Like, yeah, it's insane. And then again, to you guys, you devs, and that it's just like, another thing you have to like worry about, I would assume, is like, graphics and that kind of thing, because you get that crowd where it's like, if it doesn't look like this, fuck it, and it's just like, goddamn.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's hard, right? I think you see it in the group chat all the time. We talk about our optimization techniques and all the kind of little workarounds we have to figure out, right? But I think like people, even post-processing effects, which are that's such a huge thing for modern like console games, and like we can't do that in VR yet, right? Especially for mobile VR, and I think that gets lost in translation sometimes, right? Like there's just things we cannot do with the headsets yet, and we people have tried to write decent post-processing shaders and stuff, but a lot of times you have to have something that does basically mimics the effect, right? It's just not naturally rendering what you're seeing or whatever. Like Robert's lighting system, for example, in Heartlands, and so yeah, it is a unique challenge developing games for the Quest in VR, and I think in a lot of ways, I know for me, I feel like it's made me a better engineer, because like you learn how to work under pretty extreme constraints, and I feel bad for my artists and designers sometimes, because I do have to be the bad guy and go, we can't do that. Like that's not going to work. We can't do that. I think we're going to have to throw that out or figure out a way to simplify that. And yeah.
Yeah, you guys talk about optimization quite a bit in those chats, and even on the roundtable episodes. Yeah, it reminds me of, because you guys say like old school tricks are back again, and getting things going. It reminds me of shows like early on, like when Family Guy first came out. Like you can't say these words, and just the creativeness of getting around that. Like I've always found that to be funnier than the actual, like if they would have said fuck, like just the way they get around it. And it kind of seems the same to me for those type of things. Like
that's
just having to be that creative to fix problems, I think seems to lend you guys to be a little more creative with the rest of the game and stuff like that.
Yeah, I agree, and I actually think, and I'm sure someone's going to stone me for this opinion, but I think back to like 80s sci-fi movies, right? And I think like there's a lot of those movies who I would take visually or aesthetically or just atmospherically over modern movies, right? Because I think they learned how to really make the most out of those practical effects. I think the dude being ripped apart by the machine and RoboCop, like that was like a really visceral and kind of intense scene, and I think like it still would make me cringe today, but I think it worked totally. Or The Thing, I guess that's another one I think of, right? Like the spider head thing kind of like disattaching itself from the dude's body. Like I just think that there's a real, like you said, a sense of creativity that the directors and the art teams and everybody had to figure out, how do we convey this really big thing with not much, right? And it forces you to really go, okay, if we put all these things together, maybe we could pull it off. And then you wind up with your Blade Runners or what have you. And so
exactly. I think it just keeps those, again, I'm not a developer or like a writer for a show or anything or movie, but it just seems like it keeps the creative processes and juices flowing in all the aspects, not just that one. So
right.
And to your point, like those older movies, like maybe it was just because you grew up with that and you remember it more, but that stuff sticks with you.
That's fair. That's very fair.
Because I remember, and again, maybe this is an age thing, but I remember way more stuff from that era, like movie scenes and stuff, than like Like I just watched a movie last week. Like I'd have to sit and really think about scenes and things like because nothing happened because it was just almost cartoon because it's all CGI and effects and which is fine and has its place. But like you said in RoboCop, like that visceral, like just you know that sticks with you.
right, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, man, I'm gonna let you go because I feel like I've taken over your evening. But again, thank you so much for coming on short notice when we had the guest back out last minute, unfortunately, and just it was a fun chat, no agenda.
Absolutely.
Love to hear your guys' again, the whole reason I started doing this podcast, just to hear these sides of your guys' lives and work. And because my biggest thing is just seeing on the internet, like hearing people, and I've even seen it in real life when I've been with friends, like, oh, this game sucks, fuck it. I'm like, someone put like many years and sweat and tears and money and like just at least go halfway, like play it a couple hours. Like you can't tell me 5 minutes is enough. Like, so just to like help you guys communicate as not saying like we have a super reach or anything, but it's giving you guys option to get these stories out there because like I couldn't do it. I give you guys props. Like you guys are my heroes because like I said, it takes balls and guts and I think I find it super interesting. Like you're the back end of things and all that. So I think other people do as well. So here we are.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you for giving us a platform, right? Like I think it matters too, right? Like I think it's nice to have like these avenues to like, share our experiences, right? And especially the roundtable, right? It's definitely easier to talk shop with other devs and like, we bitch about all our various issues or, it brings up a story or so thank you and Wookie for, having us on and it's always fun to talk to you.
I've legit, like I think the next episode will be our 12th roundtable, and we do it once a month. So what does that tell you? I'm from the start, and even up to the last time we did, I legit am surprised when I'm like everyone's showing up, and you're all like, "Yep," and I'm legit surprised. Like that's crazy to me. Like that's awesome because those episodes, like you guys, one thing it's hard to not talk over each other, but it's
right.
It gets a little chaotic, but it's always fun, and it's always super interesting. And I learn more than one thing every time because I don't know shit about that side of things. And it's just like you guys talking about like triangles and stuff. I'm like, I don't know exactly what that means, but that sounds crazy. So I could just sit here and listen all the time, but. I'm so happy to hear that you guys are going to pick up speed on Galactic Bar Fight and get some more content out. And because, like I said, like early on, I'm like, I can feel the heart of this game, and I can see where you're going, and it's a blast. And you guys have been doing that and making that work and getting. I'm hoping you're getting to where you kind of saw it going or want it to be. So that's just that excites me because
I'm super excited for this, especially like the second arena is going to be good, but I feel like we're going to hit our stride with the third arena, and I'm really excited to kind of share that because I think that'll be more kind of, I guess that's going to be the version I imagine the most, right? Like this is what I hope it feel like the most. This is, all the kind of side options, right? We're going to introduce some new AI systems, and so I'm really excited. I'm excited. Yeah.
Yeah, and that I'll shut up after this, I promise. But one quick thing, like the other part that the reason to do this, there's a lot of reasons, but the main thing is like you guys can seem like. And like you've had practice, but you can take that idea out of your head and actually after a while translate it and actually create that. Like that blows my fucking mind because I need to start kind of getting into this more and hopefully when working on the booth and stuff or our clubhouse here helps with that. Because like Wookiee can do it, and like the conversations we have, I throw ideas like you wouldn't imagine like how many ideas we throw at him, or I throw at him, and he has, and it's like I just wish I had the skills to translate that, or at least make like a rough draft of something that I'm could explain better. And it's just like the way you guys are able to do that just fucking floors me, and I think that's amazing. So
sure.
And it's anything, like I said, anything we can do to help spread that, to like make you guys successful and allow you to do that, like we're all for, and that's the plan. But
for sure,
that really knocks me out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess if I could offer you any advice, I feel like I always sketch out, like, and I'm a terrible artist. Like I could barely draw a stick figure. And so, like sketching out ideas, like even if it's just a simple layout or whatever, like that, to me, that always helps kind of make something more real. So yeah, I guess if you like, there's ever an idea like you're chewing on, and you want to convey to Wookiee just in a more clear way, it might be worth just sketching out, a simple top-down map or whatever,
Sure, yeah, that makes sense. I promise I'll shut up after this one. That's another really hard thing to do when a dev comes and here's my thing, and what do you think? And it's like, I love it as is. Here's a couple things you could do. Right. If you could do these 10 things, it would be fucking amazing. And they're like, yeah, right. But to do those 10 things, that's another year. And like I get it, but it's hard not to like jump there. And like, I would hope to never piss someone off. And like, it's really cool, but it would be 10 times better with these. And they're like, yeah, we know, asshole. Like,
it's not. I think it's hard. It's so hard. It's so, because games evolve with you too. I think that's one of the other things we don't talk about a ton, right? Like Galactic Bar Fight, in the process of making it and the process of planning it and the process of putting things together, like it became a game of its own. And so like there's pitfalls that like there's stuff I don't touch in Galactic Bar Fight, and I built all of it, right? And I'm like, wow, that system's touchy. I don't know how much more we're gonna put on top of that. But and it's kind of weird, the corners you accidentally paint yourself in, or oh man, if I could rebuild that system, I would reapproach it. Like I think even between the prototype for Galactic Bar Fight and the final version, I redid the weapons from the ground up because everybody talked about how boring they were, right? And like just the way I made the weapons in the first version, they weren't going to work. And so I just had to like rethink, okay, if I was going to give a system to a designer to make whatever guns they want, how would I do that? And so yeah, no, it's just interesting how your game evolves. And like yeah, I think your comments are completely warranted, but they're like, as a developer, there's the things going on in your head like, I would love to do that, but I have this one system, and the moment I add a new element to it, it might implode or something, right? So yeah,
that's
just
when everyone says like, your game's great but needs multiplayer, and it's like, pill you, like you don't know what that means. exactly, right?
Yeah. Oh man. 100%.
So I try to keep that example in my head when I do say it, because I've learned that, like, exactly how you said it, like the systems we have, here's where we're at, and it's like, yeah, that'd be great, but
yeah,
well, man,
it's an experience.
I promised 3 times I'll shut up. Thank you so much. It's been awesome. It's been a blast.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Anytime, obviously, like the round tables or any other time, like,
yeah, absolutely.
Anytime.
Okay, for sure. Well, very much so. Yeah, thank you, whoever's listening or watching, and yeah.
There'll be a link in the show notes on both video and audio with the link to Galactic Bar Fight and all your information. Check it out. It's a blast. A lot of fun. Just jump in there and break shit, knock people down. Like,
that's the goal.
Good stress reliever.
yeah, that's what I want to hear. Yeah.
Yep. All right, man.
Good time.
Thanks, man.
For sure. Yeah.
Hopefully see you soon, and
take
it easy.
Will do. You take it easy too.
All right.